over 1,000 generations, the Jedi Knights were the guardians of peace and justice in the Old Republic. Before the Dark Times. Before the Empire.
Hey, what's up, guys? Chris Stolle back for another Journal of the Jedi. This one is special. It is for Star Wars Podcast Day 2021. Joining me, as always, is one of my co-hosts, the Lady of the Dark Side herself, Miss Wren, as she shadows herself into the dark side.
Speaking of the dark side. Hey, everyone.
And of course, joining me, I love having this guy on, the host of War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast. Good friend of mine. In fact, my company wouldn't exist if it wasn't for him. Mr. John Mark Tully, host of War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast. How you doing?
Hello there.
Hello there. All right, so plain and simple. Unfortunately, we one of our co-panelists are no longer able to be here tonight. He is down under the weather with I believe he said flu-like symptoms. So we wish him well. Hope he gets better soon. But let's go ahead and get into it here. The topic of conversation today, from the Legends novelizations and comics and everything else, there was a particular way the Empire was portrayed. Now, of course, if you just go from the movie standpoint, and I'm talking the original trilogy, I'm not necessarily mentioning sequels yet. The Empire was obviously an authoritarian regime that controlled the galaxy through forced order and quite honestly, just enslaving the galaxy. However, in the Legends novels, a lot of it was pertaining to the fact that Sheev Palpatine actually saw a threat coming from the future, from the unknown space known as the Yuuzhan Vong, and actually his designs of like the Death Star and the uniting the galaxy under one regime was to prepare them for this invasion that he knew was coming. So it really kind of questions whether the Empire was brutal. Of course they were, but I mean, were they wrong in the formation of the Galactic Empire? And of course, we'll jump into current canon to kind of see if it'll fit the way the original design was. But on your guys' opinions, was the Empire really as bad as it was meant to be portrayed to be?
I mean, with so much other things in the Star Wars universe, it's from a certain point of view. I mean, it depends on the point of view of what, how you're looking at the Empire and how you want to, it basically boils down to, is it an ends justify the means? If you're talking about Palpatine building these weapons and enslaving, putting out this, authoritarian dictatorship for all intents and purposes.
That was the word I was looking for.
With the, yeah, with the idea of seeing this threat in the future, it's, again, do the ends justify the means for what he was doing? Or was it just like he saw it? Would he have done the same thing without the Yuuzhan Vong? That's the big question. And I think yes, because that's just how Palpatine functioned.
Right.
So I mean, I think with anything, you can take aspects of it and say, oh, that's not too bad. But again, the ends, in my opinion, don't necessarily justify the means.
Well, yeah, of course.
There are different ways.
And of course, if you just point at Palpatine himself, he was a Sith, and of course, unlimited power. He wanted the Sith Empire to rise again. So those things do take into consideration, but I'm meaning like his formation of the Galactic Empire, the setting up of the Imperial Navy, the construction of 2 Death Stars with plans for more. And of course, in the Legend series, you had the Sun Crushers and everything else. So these things didn't necessarily have necessarily the functionality of oppression of the galaxy, but actually setting up defenses for a threat that he knew was coming. Now, regardless, he wasn't doing it obviously for the benefit of the galaxy. He was doing it for the benefit of his rule. But at the same time, like you said, ends justify the means in a sense. So from let's get a Sith perspective from it. Wren, what about you? Do you think in the end of the day, was the formation of the Empire the way it was formatted in the Legend series? Was it actually the right way to go with that looming threat?
Oh, really hard to answer when you cross decades like that. Because originally, the Empire was really kind of destined to be sort of the bad guy. And what I mean by bad guy, I mean, like, you see the uniform, you hear the music, you see the layout, and you just get that feeling in your chest. Like, like, oh my gosh, they don't even have to do anything. They could just stand there. But you just, there's something about them that just gets you. And that was by design. But then fast forward many years later, and we have Legends and all these books coming out, and these writers need fresh new material, but they can't completely abandon the stuff that has already been done, because that's scaffolding for everything.
Right.
So then they make it complicated. Like, well, were they really all that bad? I mean, they brought law and order, they brought resources. There's even kind of some parts that sounded like, people who normally were impoverished and had no, prospects in life. They brought wealth and prospects and jobs and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So in later years, they definitely complicated, I think it. But are they really, the bad guys? I would say your average Imperial officer doing paperwork probably doesn't view the Empire as being the ultimate bad guy. It's the job, it's their career. But I'm sure there's people in the periphery, like maybe special ops or some other jobs, that they see another side to what the Empire is about. And I think some of the web I weave around that as a fan is that Palpatine basically went insane. I suspect that he's essentially a very ancient Sith spirit, if you will, that has survived thousands of years by taking over the bodies of various different people over time.
That's interesting.
Sort of.
I said that's interesting, because
Valkorian like.
You almost painted that. Of course, one of the Legends / canon people, Darth Plagueis, who was the mentor of Sheev when he was coming up in the Sith Order. It almost kind of, in your aspect, it almost kind of placates that maybe Palpatine is, in a sense, Plagueis, or at least embodies him in some way.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much writers can do with that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, imagine it, the whole story of how Palpatine killed his master. He killed him in his sleep, and now he is the new Sith Lord because Plagueis is dead. Well, maybe that's not really how it went down. Maybe Plagueis killed Palpatine and did it like a soul transfer, possessed Palpatine's body. But he's obviously looks very different. So he comes up with this story. Oh, well, I killed Plagueis.
Yeah.
Which I think is delicious. I love twists and turns like that.
I like another thing I just thought of that you could do with kind of the same thing is, and it'll be easy to weave it into the rule of two, is that when the apprentice does defeat the master, he then takes the power and the memory. So basically, he gets that power from much like if you've ever watched the Highlander series, when you
Mhm.
cut off in the Highlander, when you cut off the Highlander, you get that other Highlander, that other immortal's power. Maybe you could do something the same way with the Sith, that when one Sith defeats the master and takes the place of the master, he gets that master's power. He gets those. So essentially taking on almost the memories and everything from that past master. So it goes, each progressive Sith becomes more and more and more and more and more and more powerful because they're taking on the power of that previous Sith.
The only problem I have with that is throughout Star Wars, though, if you want to do anything or be anything, you have to go through the pain and the effort to do the thing.
Yeah.
You know, Mandalorians have to train, Sith have to go through all kinds of torment to get where they want to be, and Jedi have to do their kind of thing.
They have to
So,
lift a hand,
so yes, right?
which is why Rey's not a Jedi.
Oh, you had to go there. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Hey, I'm happy they finally had Leia as being a Jedi. So there we go.
That's true. That's true.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's funny, we
Um,
mentioned about the sequel trilogy a lot, and of course tying into what John was just talking about with the kind of Highlander taking on the essence of a Sith you killed to raise in the hierarchy. It does bring into account the current canon, which has been going on, which kind of grays the area even more about whether the Empire was possibly not as bad as people perceived. And the reason being is the First Order. The First Order, like we know that the Empire was xenophobic. They only brought in, with the exception of Grand Admiral Thrawn, because how exceptional he was, it was mainly a humans only club. They didn't really deal with a lot of the other alien species outside of looking at them as subcultures. And if it wasn't painted that clearly in the original trilogy or in the subsequent Legends series, the one thing the sequel trilogy definitely did is painted that the Empire slash First Order, the new Empire slash First Order, was extremely Nazi-like, which fits into like what Ren was saying earlier with Palpatine's struggle mentally. With this clone that came out that was, embodiment of all the Sith, that turns out that, Palpatine was controlling the strings of the rise of the First Order all the way through. It definitely fits that he was kind of a Hitler reality in this aspect. And when you put that in, maybe he was just a megalomaniac who wanted to crush the galaxy under his boot, instead of being somebody who was like, I've got to do this because this is the only way I can protect what's mine.
Both.
Well, and when you're, and when you're dealing, like you mentioned Hitler, the question always comes up is, what if early on during the Second World War, one of the many assassination attempts would have succeeded, and somebody else would have came to power, in the Nazi regime.
Right.
How would that have changed? It's the same thing. Someone else, takes over the empire. How does it change? How does it end? One thing that you mentioned about, different people having different opinions. I can't remember. I think it was in one of the books where they talk about the fact that there are places in the Empire that every day they've never seen a TIE fighter, they've never seen a stormtrooper a day in their life, and they just go about their day, just living their life just like they normally would under Imperial rule. But then you get out further out into the outer rim, and it becomes a completely different story.
Well, I mean,
so it just depends on where you're from and how your life, what your life is like.
You're not wrong. And I mean, in film, we've had looks at that, not only Jyn Erso in Rogue One, before she discovered that her father was the one that created the Death Star. But I mean, even in the original trilogy, Luke Skywalker's life until the Empire came looking for those droids, the Empire really didn't affect his day-to-day or his family's day-to-day on
Yeah.
Tatooine. You know,
If anything, it was a opportunity, because he was talking to his Uncle Owen about going to the academy,
right.
which was the Imperial Academy.
Also the same in
Um,
Solo when you look at it. I mean, that
Yeah,
was a
yeah,
little thief slave, but I mean, the Corellia wasn't necessarily under the boot of the Empire. They were allowed to
yeah,
operate business as normal.
yeah. It was important, but it was important, because it was a shipbuilding facilities there became probably a very important world to the Empire to make sure that it was safe. And I thought one thing I thought was just kind of funny. I thought the scene from Life of Brian. I don't know if you guys ever seen the movie Life of Brian,
Of
where
course.
it's like, what have the Romans ever brought to us? Well, they brought what has the Empire ever brought to us? Well, they brought law and order. They brought jobs. They brought stability.
Well, it's kind of interesting because if we take into account the prequel trilogies and everything else, from the normal citizenship under the 20+ year rule of the Galactic Empire, most of them probably looked at, as you were saying, and I think this is an important point. A lot of people probably looked at the Empire as they brought an end to that chaotic war that was the Clone Wars.
Yeah,
They did bring peace,
yeah,
at least in the beginning format of it. They brought peace to an otherwise destructive war that ravaged the galaxy.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's what fascist regimes do. That's how they're able to come to power. And Italy in the 1920s and 30s, me being a history nerd, is a great example of that. How the joke is about, we don't have any, we've lost all our personal freedoms, we've lost everything like that, but hey, at least the trains run on time.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the Empire. It's sure, we have no they've rolled back all our freedoms, and we have no freedom, there's no more freedom of press or freedom of speech or anything like that. But hey, at least we're not having to die in a Clone Wars now. At least the Clone Wars are over.
That's it. Yeah. And like you said, I mean, with the formation of the Galactic Empire, obviously people had to build the Star Destroyers and the
You had
land
jobs
and the TIE fighters. So it probably did bring a stronger economy to a lot of, not so much the core worlds or the mid worlds, but probably the outer rim.
Yeah. Well, even the core worlds probably benefited from it. And I could even see how people would be hesitant and worried about when the Empire fell and the rise of the New Republic, because once again you have that power vacuum, and we saw that in the Mandalorian, this season, the Mandalorian. If you guys watched that, this very second episode, where
Did a
the
beautiful
Marshal
job.
talks.
Yeah.
The Marshal talks about the watching as the second Death Star blows up, and immediately someone came in to fill that gap that was left by that power vacuum.
Right.
So,
And the part they
Yeah.
said, hey, the Empire's gone, look around. Is this the great utopia you envisioned? And it wasn't, it was crime ridden. It was horrible. People were struggling and suffering. And
Yeah.
I love showing that dichotomy because it's complicated. It's like World War II and the Germans. And you ever read the book Thief?
No.
No.
Fantastic book. Highly recommend it. There's a movie too.
All right.
Yeah, I have to look into that.
It definitely I don't want to say anything about it because spoilers, but once you get into it, you'll see why I brought up the book Thief.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, even in the Legends, they did kind of depict, at least from my memory. It's been a while since I've read a Legends book, but even in Legends, like during the formation of the New Republic, the end of the Empire's reign, it wasn't all sunshines and rainbows. It wasn't like the Emperor's
no.
dead, long live peace. I mean, you had the remnants of the Empire constantly up the rebellion's ass. The rebellion itself struggling to put together a new republic that satisfied
Yeah.
everybody that was joining it. I mean, you're right. There was definitely a power vacuum, regardless of whether you go Legends or new canon. There was a power vacuum as soon as the Empire fell. And
Well, and the other thing
struggled
you
against
had all of these different rebel groups that might have been in any other situation might have been opposed to each other through whatever political means, but they were united under one cause, defeating the Empire. Once that was done, all of those rivalries, all of those different things came right back to the surface. And it was just like the old Republic once again, where infighting and people trying to, get power, get more power. And, it's democracy is messy. No matter how you put it, democracy is messy.
Well, you bring another positive point to the Empires. If nothing else, it did unify its enemies.
Mm-hmm.
People had a central focus.
Yep. Either way, whether they were for the Empire or rebels against the Empire, they had a singular goal, and there was very little gray within there. I mean, there was, but eventually, and I think Han Solo kind of proved this, that you can only sit on this is one of those wars that you can only sit on the fence for so long.
Right.
Eventually you're going to be forced to pick a side.
I think Jyn Erso kind of proved that too, from the same point. Like, there's only so long you can walk around with your head down and not look at the Imperial flag.
Not look up. Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, then let's wrap this up with your guys' opinion. Let's treat it like a court of law with all the evidence set to us, both from Legends and from current canon, the sequel trilogy included. I know that I hear the groans from some of the Star Wars fans now. Yes, we're including the sequel trilogy. Overall, was the Empire the true evil of the Star Wars galaxy?
Yes.
You say yes? What do you form that on?
I say yes. It's no matter what, the taking away of freedoms is wrong. To me, no matter what, guys. And I would rather live in if I was a member of the galactic family, out there in the Star Wars universe, I would rather live in a chaotic world where I had freedom to do what I wanted to do, to speak my mind, to live my life without fear of any type of reprisal, without having to look over my shoulder, without having to worry if my neighbor or my family member was going to turn me into the ISB because of something I said, than to live under a totalitarian regime. That's just my opinion. So I say yes. Now, does that mean that every single member of the Empire was evil? No. But I think as a whole, the system as a whole, as it was created by Palpatine, yes, it was evil. And I know you mentioned off camera that you wanted to kind of separate the Sith and the Empire, but I don't think you can do that because the Empire is the Sith. I mean, to me, they're one and the same. You can't really separate the two of them. So I would say yes.
fair enough. Wren, I know you got a different take.
I definitely have a different take.
Overall view, is the Empire the true evil of the galaxy?
First, the part about separating the Sith and the Empire, and you think they're one and the same, I think they're very different. A reason for that is because Vader and Palpatine, when they created their own little cult, the Inquisitors, they put rules and regulations on them that would have never have been a part of Sith culture. They couldn't have intimate relationships. They couldn't have attachments. Basically, they couldn't have emotions. It was really more Jedi-like, not Old Republic Jedi-like, but you know, the Jedi that we're more familiar with. Like, it's very not Sith-like, because Sith are about passion and emotions, all emotions, including love. And that was just completely stripped out of the Inquisitors. And so it's not really a culture of Sith. It's run by a Sith, but the culture isn't there. It doesn't reflect the the Sith Creed or any of that kind of stuff. The Inquisitors are not Sith. They're Inquisitors.
Essentially, like if a president was Catholic, for example, his religion doesn't necessarily mean that the policies that he puts in place are based on his religion. I get what Wren's saying. As a layman's example.
They want control. Well, they don't want Force users to rise up against them. They want to enslave them. They want to brainwash them. They want to keep them under heel. They want them so emotionally downtrodden that they're really kind of mentally just hanging on by a wire anyway, which is what Palpatine did to Anakin. I mean, he stripped the guy's body, he stripped the guy's mind, and what he was left was this lunatic. And you see that more in the comic books, I think, more than anything else. But was the Empire the ultimate evil? I don't think the Empire really knew exactly what it was, because Palpatine kept what was really going on to himself. Palpatine was a really horrible, nasty, evil dude. That's no question whatsoever. Vader was, in my view, basically a puppet.
He was a victim.
Yeah, he was a victim. He was emotionally just used and brutalized and manipulated. And he just didn't have the internal will and faculties to be able to fight against that. And the Jedi Order, they didn't help him out either. I mean, they were not great counselors, I mean,
we will dig into that
later.
Yeah, we will dig into that, because even I, as a Jedi light side supporter, I can't turn a blind eye to how terrible the Jedi was before their fall. But all right, and overall we got about 5 minutes left in this recording anyway, so overall I agree with you guys for the most part. I don't necessarily believe that the Galactic Empire was the greatest evil from legend or current canon of the Star Wars universe. I personally, and I don't have enough time to be able to go into full details, but I think the formation of the Sith Empire from the Old Republic / Knights of the Old Republic regime was actually more evil, because as we were saying, Palpatine didn't run the galaxy as a Sith. He ran it as an emperor. He used politics as opposed to Sith order. Where the original Sith Empire from Knights of the Old Republic / Old Republic, that was literally, you are living under Sith rule. So I think I'll
fight you on that one.
I think there's a major difference on that. But on that note, guys, I would love to know what you guys think. Please leave a comment in the comment section down below and tell us what you think. Do you think the Empire was as bad as people claimed, or do you think it was truly the kind of savior of the galaxy in some way, shape, or form? But until then, I want to make sure I get to this. Mark, John, John Mark. It always throws me off because you use both names. Tell everybody where they can find War of the Stars, a great Star Wars podcast.
Well, there's actually a couple places you can find us. You can listen to us live each and every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time on twitch.tv/War of the Stars, or you can go to our Get Vocals page. Just go to getvocal.com, sign up there. It's completely free, and you can find us there. It's a great way to interact with both of us. If you're not able to listen to us live, we are on pretty much anywhere where fine podcasts are heard. Stitcher, Spotify, Google Cast, you name it, we're there. Just type in War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast. Facebook page, Facebook group by the same name. The email is warofthestars1@gmail.com. That is also our Twitter handle. And of course, our Patreon page, patreon.com/War of the Stars. We have a lot of fun talking Star Wars and just different topics. Myself, Joe, who you guys here at Journal of the Jedi know, and Ray, we have a great time and it's really fun. So, yeah.
Nice. And of course, guys, with the Star Wars Podcast Day 2021, we would love to make this an annual event. And to do so, I think one of the greatest things that we could possibly do is share our particular podcast panel talents and everything else. So at this point, I'm going to give Wren her outro to let everybody know where they can find her, especially if you would like to have her as a guest on your Star Wars show for a unique Sith perspective. Wren, take it away.
Hi, yeah, feel free to send me a message. I'm on Facebook, Wren Twathady Dannon. So feel free to say hi, and I love to chat. Especially, I love to chat about Star Wars.
And of course, guys, you can find Journal of the Jedi right here at Breaking the Fourth Wall Entertainment on YouTube. Of course, hit the like button, subscribe, comment, share it out with your friends and family, especially if you enjoyed the content. If you preferred an audio only format, we've got you covered. Just look up Breaking the Fourth Wall Entertainment on Anchor.fm, Apple iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, or wherever quality podcasts can be heard. Guys, I had a blast with this one. I'm excited and completely humbled that we get to be a part of Star Wars Podcast Day number one. And I look forward to doing this annually. But of course, we'll catch you on the next Journal of the Jedi. And as John will always say when he ends his podcasts,
this isn't just my Star Wars. This isn't just your Star Wars. This is our Star Wars.
may the Force be with you.
Force be with you.